We are live now. Good morning, everybody. We're going to start with a clip from a couple previous shows. If you haven't watched our customer experience shows, we have a lot of content. Check it out on YouTube. Here we go.
Not all stores that have said, hey, we understand what is going on, and we're not going to take advantage of our clients and our guests. We understand that, hey, there is inflation and things have changed, so we do have to change with the times to stay afloat. We also understand there's not a reason to mark up a Toyota Corolla $50,000 above MSRP. There's a big difference here. So with that, other people have taken a different approach, and that's a story for another day. But the ones that have taken a different approach, I've seen that reputation across the nation. And I don't even have to look at their gross profit. I don't have to look into anything else. I can just, based on facts, I've seen the reputation go from 4.9 with, we'll say, 3,000 reviews. Now, if you have 3,000 reviews, to go from a 4.9 up or down takes a lot, and go the opposite spectrum from 4.9 to 4.2.
We talked about price for the first 22 minutes of this phone call. I feel price is only relevant in the absence of value. So I'll give you two examples. Ritz-Carlton. They've got a Ritz-Carlton down the street here in Dana Point, Laguna Niguel. It's booked out. You can go online right now and try to reserve a room for this weekend. You won't get one. They charge a lot. Jeff, they charge a hot dog fee. And I Googled it a couple minutes ago. The average Ritz-Carlton hot dog fee, their resort fee, is $60 a night. It's okay to charge a hot dog fee, but is the consumer getting value? Consumers will pay. The other example I have is Chick-fil-A, right? Chick-fil-A is not the cheapest fast food chain. It's the one most expensive. You get the 20-piece chicken nuggets, it's going to set you back like $18. It's ridiculous. But there's a line out the door for both Ritz-Carlton and for Chick-fil-A. Why? It's the way they treat people. They've never, the word...
Well, I think if we want to retain our customers, our focus has to be on retaining our employees. Yes. So I think to start customer retention, it starts with employee retention. And right now, you're not gonna be head and shoulders above your competition in a monetary sense. So it really is about culture. You have to have a place where people want to work so that you can actually hold them accountable. Accountability is probably the hardest thing for any of us right now, because there is a little bit of an attitude like, well, you tell me I have to do this, but I can go next door and they don't make me do that, so I'm gonna go next door. And so there is a little bit of an attitude problem where accountability starts to be really difficult. However, if you have a spot where nobody wants to leave you because they are happy, they enjoy the family, they feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves, then you don't tend to have people wanting to leave. On the flip side, people are wanting to come to you. And once people want to come to you and work with you, now you can hold them accountable because they actually do.
So there you go, and that's a quick video. There are a number of videos on customer experience we've done, but those are a few clips from years past and seasons past. So here we go.
Ready, set, go.
Coming to you live, it's the Auto Hub Show with Ian and Jeff. Here we go.
So what would your dealership feel like if your entire sales staff was literally on fire, your sales and service staff? They were nonstop all over social media, completely dominating your marketplace. They could do it in 30 days or less and then continue their education to do it for an entire 6 months or a year. You literally would completely take over the entire marketplace and no one would be able to compete with you. And that's what we can do for you. So when you're walking around your community, whether you're at local restaurants or you're going to the gym, you don't want to be bothered? Fine, you won't be bothered. But a lot of people will walk up to you and say, oh my God, I love your social media. Your staff is amazing. We love what you're doing in the community. We want to come buy a car from you. We want to get an oil change at your dealership. Your community is absolutely going to love love you. And it doesn't matter what platform you're on. You could be on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all social media platforms. You will literally be all over the place. I've traveled all over North America. I've trained Toyota. I've trained Nissan. I've been to driving sales. I've been to Women in Auto. I get hired as a speaker for conferences at universities all over the country. And I can help change the trajectory of your dealership right now. If you click on the link, you can sign up for a webinar. It's live with me, and you'll learn the 7 strategies that you need at your dealership in order to see that success.
Hi everyone, this is Paul Brobson, the CEO over at Trusted Sale. And if you don't know Larry Feldman at Career Changers, boy, are you missing out. Now, what are you missing, you might ask? Well, for starters, you're missing the world's best trainer. But seriously, what makes Larry a great trainer is how engaged he keeps his audience. I was at a store recently while Larry was conducting training. And let me tell you, nobody wanted to leave that room. I mean, even when they needed a bio break, they wanted to stick around and hear what Larry had to say. The great late Jim Valvano, who said, to me, there are 3 things everyone should try to do every day. Number 1 is laugh. Number 2 is think. Spend some time in thought every day. And number 3, you should have your emotions move you to tears. If you laugh, think, and cry, that's a heck of a day. Well, I can tell you, Larry's going to make you laugh. He's going to make you think. And yeah, every once in a while, he's going to make you shed a tear or 2. But one thing I can say, it's a heck of a day when Larry comes to visit. But wait, there's more. There is? Yeah. Not only is Larry a great trainer, but he's also one hell of a recruiter. So if you need people in your dealership, and I mean anyone, you need technicians, salespeople, managers, BDC agents, whatever you need, Larry can get you staffed right with the right people and do it fast.
Always to improve. Every month we want to improve better on what we did the month before, maybe the year before. It's about how fast we can get the cars done with quality work to get it to the front line, because that's where we make our money. And the bottom line is, the longer it takes, the more money you spend. We want to get it down as low as possible. Right now, like I said, we're in a great stage. We're at 4.5 days. In recon, we want to know how quickly we can get the cars out of the recon process and to the front line. The average days in recon and then the time to line are the most important things to be looking at. I'm Mike Burrell, and Service Director at JM Lexus.
Good morning and welcome. And also, so you know, we do have 2 sponsorship slots still available for 2024 season. We actually recently added CDK Global. They're going to be a sponsor for the 2024 season, but we are still looking for sponsors at the platinum level and the bronze level if anyone's interested. So go ahead, Jeff. I'm going to start with a couple books. Uncopyable, Steve Miller, How to Create an Unfair Advantage Over Your Competition, Empathy in Action by Tony Bates, and A Complaint is a Gift, How to Learn from Critical Feedback and Recover Customer Loyalty. So those are 3 that I thought were interesting. So go ahead, Jeff, with our disclaimer.
Well, this is our famous disclaimer. For those of you who are new with us, we always put this on because, some people, Larry, get a little bit controversial. And so the views and opinions of our guests today are those of them and not necessarily that of the Auto Hub Show or Ian and Jeff at the Auto Hub Show. Thank you.
Thank you. And the show today is really about customer happiness, and is it really possible? We have done shows before on customer happiness, but this is the first for 2023, I believe. And we are going to be live at 2 events, a Used Car Week in Scottsdale. Jeff and I will be there live. Broadcasting, we are looking for people to be interviewed, and also our ambush interview. And I will be at SEMA this year in Vegas later this month. So let's get into it. Jeff, go ahead.
Well, I think it's true that Mercedes at SEMA is going to have a G-Wagon G-Squared with 12 electric motors and 7,000 kilowatts of power with solar panels on there. So you'll be able to see it at SEMA. Oh, come on, somebody's got to smile at that one.
Well, James Carter will be happy.
Actually, he won't, because it would have to be a Cybertruck. and then that would be okay. So leaving politics out because we can get really political. Thank you all for joining us. This is it's interesting. We've had a lot of discussions of late, and we tend to go down that rabbit hole of man, oh man, people are getting abused. Things aren't very good, and look at them. They're coming in and being told that their Kia Niro is now $12,000 more than what they ordered it for online. And gee, if you don't want to take it, with the lift kit and 35-inch tires, we'll go to the next person, et cetera, et cetera. So it's perfect timing. Is customer happiness really possible? And we're so excited because we have somebody new to the show on, who's Candace Lowe, who will introduce herself in about a second and a half. And Candace, thanks for joining us because we really like people. Martha's been on a couple of times, and the rest, well, they're all old, partially bald guys. But anyways, moving on. Please introduce yourselves and just tell me a little bit just about how why do you think we've made this topic the show, in your opinion, even though we haven't told you?
Well, thank you very much for having me on. This is my 26th year in the car business, so I do have a little bit of perspective on, what's going on now versus what's been going on previous to maybe COVID times. I think it is actually possible, but I think there are steps that each individual dealer needs to take in order to make that happen.
Okay, that's good. That's a great thing. Thank you, Greg. Good viewpoint. Next, we have Martha Alvarado. I always read it as Alvarado. I don't know why, so I have to try and do it right because like I said earlier, your name is very important. Martha, please introduce yourself, say hi to everybody, and just give us your opinion why you think we decided to make this topic of this show.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm Martha Alvarado, okay, and I've been in the industry for 24 years. I've seen a lot of changes, and I think this is one of the most important topics. Happiness, it's something that we all need, and it's contagious, and we follow happiness. So it is important that we talk about it, that we try to transmit happiness, and that we focus on how we can get there at our dealership. There is a culture change after COVID. And more now more than ever, we need to make sure that we're keeping our customers happy.
Okay. Thank you. That's great. And next we have as our last official guest, the king of old signs from old stuff from the car business, and a very young guy. And we have Brian Modes. Hi, Brian. Thanks for joining us again. And step in on your thoughts of our choice of topic.
Well, thanks, Jeff, and thanks, Ian, for including me and letting me be on here. I always enjoy joining you guys. But so my background, for those who don't know, I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Onboardian. I've been involved in the automotive and ultimately retail industries for the better part of almost 20 years, almost always focused on employee employee experience and ultimately how that impacts the consumer experience. And so, the happiness topic of making everybody happy is a tough one. I mean, I think we should always try. I'm always reminded of a quote: when you try to be everything to everyone, you accomplish being nothing to anyone, right? And so I think it's always about understanding who our customers are, understanding where they're at. And I also think it's important to delineate between the sales experience when we're selling them a new car and the service experience, ultimately when we're working with somebody that's coming into the service department, and ultimately what we're trying to achieve when we're working with those things. But I do think it's as far as why it's a topic, I could go micro, I could go macro, I could go, 30, 40 years ago, we understood this to ultimately deliver great service to our customers as a foundation of who we were. Like, our dealers were pillars of the community, members of the community. It's who they were, it's what they did, and it's what they understood. And then for a lot of years in the middle, we commoditized our industry, both in sales and in service, and we got away from the personal touch. And so obviously, because of consumer experience being a forefront conversation with everything that we do now, because of Amazon and Walmart, Chick-fil-A and Nordstrom and all the companies that are out there that we know of, I think we now know that it's critically important to the survival of our industry that we ultimately focus on the consumer experience and making sure that we're doing a great job of doing the best we can for our customers every single day.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It's very funny. You just reminded me of there's a saying that says you can make some of the people happy all of the time. You can make all of the people happy none of the time, and some of the people happy most of the time. And it's a different word than that, so it's a very interesting thing. But thank you for that viewpoint. And Ian, next question, please.
Unless you're ice cream, and then most of the time you can make most of the people happy unless they're lactose.
You can make everybody happy with ice cream unless you're tolerant.
Or you're against ice cream. Anyway, over the last 3 years, dealers have behaved in some cases not at their best. Do we actually deserve happy customers would be the question. And I think as I've looked at many shows that we've done on this topic and also many videos on this topic, to me, it's about creating a unique experience. And that's sort of my thought. But why don't we start with Mr. Moats on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's unfortunate. I've always believed in the 80-20 rule, right? And so I think for the most part, the majority of dealers have tried to do the best they possibly can over the last few years at a very difficult time. I think unfortunately we hear about the fringe cases more than most. I think a lot of dealers do try to do a great job. So I think to say whether we do or don't deserve happy customers, I think we work in a pretty unique industry where we touch something that touches someone's lives on a daily basis, whether it be buying a new car in a very happy moment of ultimately buying something new that they love and enjoy, and then delivering for them in their moments of need, right? Whether it's a repair issue or a maintenance issue, making it as easy as possible to take that off of their plate and be a concierge and deliver for them. But as far as do we deserve them? That's a tough question, because I think some dealers probably don't deserve happy customers. They deserve every negative review that comes their way. But the majority of dealers, I think, do their best on a daily basis to deliver in those moments.
Brian, would you agree with this statement that it's a 10-80-10 rule on that, where you have 10% of the dealership groups that do an exceptional job, 80% do the job that they're capable of doing, and 10% of the dealerships shouldn't be in business?
Yeah, I mean, I would completely agree with that. And I say that even about customers when dealers try to talk about the customers that they interact with. You got 10% of customers that will come in and pay anything. They'll literally, they don't care, they don't look, they just want to sign and go home. And they could pay over market, and they're going to bring you cookies at Christmas and a card at New Year's, and they love you for it. And you're going to have a bottom 10% that literally are going to come in to try to make your life, be a big pain in the butt. Like they go to school thinking that it's cool to come in and negotiate with you and make it hard, and they're never going to do another ounce of business with you ever again. And a lot of dealers, I think, unfortunately, a lot of dealers sometimes make that bottom 10% the rule, not the exception. And that's why you have that 80% of dealers in the middle that, for one reason or another, whether it's the turnover issue, whether it's lack of organizational systems, whether it's turnover at the dealership level from a group coming in and buying them, or people that are selling out. I just think it's difficult for that 80%. They're just trying to survive day to day and try to do a good job, but just don't have a lot of the organizational systems, the access to resources to be able to build sustainable cultures where they can work with those customers. So
Brian, I have to tell you, I think you just hit a brilliant spot. So many people in this industry are just trying to survive day to day. And we're not just talking salespeople, many dealerships, we all think about all the money they're making. Yeah, they are, but many of that money isn't being reinvested into survival things. It's going to stuff. But most places we're in a 30-day world. I just about finished, October 1994. Yeah, I just about finished October 94. So I'm waiting for November 94.
Well, we had a couple.
But I think Peter, you hit on something. It's the capability. And I'd be curious to hear what people think is, what are dealers capable of that they're not even aware of?
Candace, you want to speak to that? And we did have a comment from LinkedIn. What's our great industry's mission, and work backward from there? Is it to sell a car, maybe a couple F&I products, or earn a recurring customer? Our actions are primarily one-time transactional. Retention is poor. Our intentions are customers for life. Intentionality is not enough. But that was interesting.
So I've always taught from a place that if you're selling to the customer like this is the only car you're going to ever sell them and you'll never see them again, you're doing it wrong. Each person, there's hundreds of reports and stories and documentary. Each person will buy anywhere between 8 to 10 cars in your life. Unless you work in the car business, then that's like double. But 8 to 10 cars in your life is average for most people not in the car business. So you have to ask yourself, and this is how I train salespeople, sales teams, sales managers. Do you just want to sell this guy this car today, or do you want to sell this guy the next 8 to 10 cars? And how you treat them from the very first time you pick up the phone, answer the internet lead, greet them at the front door, that dictates how that's going to go. So I think, and the original question you had, do we deserve happy customers? I think the ones that are putting the effort into making sure we can earn and we're treating them right to earn those 8 to 10 sales, absolutely we deserve happy customers. But the ones who, and this is when I grew up in the car business, it was about the per sale profit. And, we can get 10 pounders and 5 pounders. Nope, you don't deserve happy customers. That's your goal. Car karma all day. Car karma is real. So,
Candace, I couldn't agree more with you there. The average customer, single customer, is worth $250,000 of profitability if you keep them for life.
Mm-hmm.
It is imperative that we look at that. Rather, we have to look at the relationship model over the transactional sale. And
100%.
we're focusing on the maximizing gross profit value per unit. That's our focus. It always has been, and it's being that way because we look at a 30-day cycle. I believe the people that look at long-term customer value will succeed far quicker than the one and done model.
And sometimes you have to break it down to money. Like, how much does it cost you to get a new customer? I think it was $240 to get a new customer as opposed to $60 to keep one you already have. I mean, sometimes I've broken it down that simply for an owner or a GM.
Yeah.
And then they start doing the math. And it's like, yeah, that's why I'm saying.
Well,
I'm sorry, $250 for a 10 pounder is worth it.
Well, think about just that alone, the acquisition cost of a customer versus long-term customer value. Then look at the short-term thought process when you add in turnover and the cost of turnover because you've treated the customer wrong or your employee wrong. And those people don't deserve to be in the business.
And also, I mean, when you look at that $250 number, and I've heard numbers of $500 back in the day,
yeah,
even those numbers are very inaccurate. I would say that number is probably closer to $1,000 to $1,500 or more, depending on how you look at that angle. But Martha, what do you think?
I think that dealerships deserve happy customers. Okay, everybody deserves them. But what happened is we think, or some dealerships think that they're going to be handed over to them. And they don't realize that you got to earn them. And like everybody said, like Brian said, like you need to invest. You need to invest on training your people, changing the culture of your dealership, looking at the softwares, looking at the processes that you have, because you need to be able to identify what is preventing your customers from being happy. And do not ignore those signs. Actually put some action, put some work into it. And we've been saying also there is a lot of revenue in our business. There have been a lot of money in the last few years, right? And I think this was the season where dealership can actually kind of like a slow down and say, hey, we have resources. Let's change. And a lot of the groups, a lot of the culture has been changed in the last couple of years. There's a lot of us, they are promoting this type of service because we want to change the perception that the customer has. But so also something important that Pierre says, like, are we looking at our customers as a transaction, also as a relationship? So investing in promoting this type of culture is very important because we do deserve the customers. We as employees, I'm inside the dealership. I want every single customer to be happy. We're now going to be able to deliver to almost every one of them. But as long as the intention was there and the process was there and everything that we were trying to accomplish was actually, we put the effort into it, then, we should get them. There is no reasons why we shouldn't.
Impressive. Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I think you can go back to even what April, the clip of April at the very beginning, right? And I know anybody that's been on this call and for the better part of the last, couple of months, always hears me talk about, and Peter talk about, and certainly Doug talk about, dealership experience, or what I just call employee experience, right? And so if we're focused on, and it's the same thing, right? If we look at our customers as transactions, same thing how we look at our people. What are we looking at our people? How are we trying to drive retention? Are we looking at trying to build a relationship, build a career, and give something back to somebody, inside the dealership? If we focus on that and we create, satisfied and vibrant employees, well, guess what? It's going to go right out to the customers, but it's what do we take care of our own house first? And are we making sure that we're, satisfying their needs, developing them, creating the right mindset with them? To your point, the culture that starts with who we hire, how we hire, and ultimately what we invest in our people ultimately goes out to our customers.
One thing there, Brian, I just want to jump in, is that I find in talking to 95% of the people that are in this business, they want to start their skyscraper from the 100th floor downwards rather than from the bottom up. And it just isn't working that way. They believe that they can employ technology. They believe that they can employ processes from the top down, not the bottom up. And it doesn't give the customer the experience that they want. And you've hit a lot of points on that. It's all about, and one last thing, you've said it many times, we're in the hospitality business selling a commodity. That's what we are.
That's a great way to look at that. Yeah, definitely.
But you know something I have to say? You said the hospitality business. I don't think any of us on here are patrons of the highest end hotels out there. So how do you think any of us would feel walking into the most expensive hotel in, I don't know, the south of France? What the heck? And walking in there and saying, I would like a room, please. How do you think we would feel about that experience?
Well,
I don't think anybody would be there. They go like, oh, hello, sir. Yes, we don't know you. Your card is not a black card. Ooh, you cannot come in here. Do customers feel that way in dealerships?
Well, it was funny.
I would say exclusivity and hospitality are two different things, right? You're talking about some of the most exclusive hotels, and they do sometimes act that way, where it's an exclusive club, as opposed to a hospitality-driven more industry that is probably more of your, not your high end, but more of your, upper middle and mid level, hotels and restaurants.
Well, I thought there was a really interesting post this morning I saw before the show, which someone was interviewing random people on the street saying, how long should a car process take? How long? And I thought that was really interesting, just because the perception of what it takes and what it does is different. So from a point of view of simple change, like, okay, let's look at a process that's 100 years old. Yeah, there's been some additions lately, but it's 100 years old in a lot of cases. It hasn't really moved with the times. Okay, maybe it's not ideal, but more importantly, when you can buy other things in minutes, why does it take 8 hours in some cases? Like that's kind of where I see little changes being the key to that customer experience. Like, Mr. Customer,
I think that
what is
that digital retailing tool filters into that. So the next generation's coming behind. I'm a Gen Xer. So the next generations, my generation, and then younger, they're going to be all about the digital retailing tool. So the less that dealerships fight, and I mean, I'm in dealerships the past 13 years, and they fight that. They fight that digital retailing tool. Oh, I lose profit. oh, I lose control. And the quicker they start really adapting and wrapping their arms around that, and the quicker they stop fighting it, the better off they'll be for the future generations. Because to your point, millennials don't want to spend 4 hours in a dealership. Gen Xers, no, we're not spending 4 hours in a dealership. And anybody behind us, not only are they looking, to your guys' point about employee satisfaction, because my daughter and her friends, and then a lot of other people I talk to that she works with about this, where are you looking for reviews? They're not only looking for reviews on Google, they're looking at Glassdoor about employee satisfaction.
Wow.
So that's a key part now. So to your point, happy employees are going to be a part of the mix when they're making buying decisions. So really wrapping your arms around the digital part of it. And that's where I come in as the, paid digital expert for that particular business. And I look at all your digital footprint and I see, well, your employees are pretty ticked off when they leave here and their average tenure is about 30 days. That's not helping you. Because that attitude pervades down to the customer. And now you've got customers having that great best experience that you're going to have to overcome now. You can't go back and change that. You have to start today and then change that going forward. So wrapping your arms around a digital process is really key, and eliminating that expectation of 4 hours in a dealership. I mean, that's not happening anymore. Especially not for a high line.
Maybe I can ask Martha that question. I mean, Martha, you deal with customers all the time. I don't know the last time a big dealer group, or even a small dealer, did a random survey on something like that. Like, what did you like? What did you hate realistically? But, what is the pushback you hear from customers? I mean, you deal with them all the time at your dealership there. What are you hearing these days that's different than maybe you heard a couple of years ago?
So first of all, to add to the digital retailing, I work in a very busy area with with Toyota brand. Probably in the last year or so, I have had maybe 3 or 4 customers asking me if they can do the purchase online.
Right.
So sometimes it's perception, right? Yes, we're talking about digital retailing. I feel the customer, it's more about the time. It's more concerned about how do you care for them? How do you connect with them? And how are you listening to their needs? Okay, now more than before, yes, they really need to feel that connection. They really need to feel that you care for the problems. Because a vehicle at this moment in our economy is not a luxury. We're not changing cars because, I just want a new model. You're changing into a new vehicle because you need the car. It's so you want to make sure that you're able to resolve the problem that you're having with them. And when they feel that you have actually listened to their concerns and that you care for them and then that you provide solutions, they appreciate that. And then there comes the money and the value. You may be selling over sticker, okay? You may be disclosing everything, and they're still very happy. So it's going back to being humans. It's going back to making sure that we forget that we just don't sell cars. It's what the vehicle is going to do for your customer. It is the problem that this vehicle is going to solve for your customers. And it's the same thing when they come into the service drive. Why did this customers complaining that it needs to be out of here in 2 hours? What do they really need to go and do after this, right? So the connection with your customers has to be at a higher level. I personally have been, managing internet departments for the last, 14 years. And it's still, maybe because I'm at a Toyota dealership, and still, our customers are not really pushing for that digital experience. They're pushing for the connection. Are you listening to me and what I really want and what I really need?
And I think part of that is how complicated it is.
It solves that time hurt. And I don't think there's enough of a push of an education point to the consumer about how the digital retailing tools can solve that time problem. You don't have to spend 4 hours in the dealership. You can start it beforehand. But there's just not a big push from dealerships or OEMs for that matter on how that can solve that hurt. It's just, hey, use our new shiny tool. It's great.
So
instead of it solves the time hurt.
Well, I can speak a little bit to the OEM point of view, and I've been in my current role been working with a lot of different OEMs. Part of the challenge is the dealers maybe not wanting to listen 100% to the OEM, but part of it is that the OEMs are going, okay, you need to do this, whether it be Ford or whoever the OEM is. Yeah. But a lot of it being, this is a process that needs to be much simpler than it is. You've got
Yes.
multiple steps. You've got a complex amount of questions that maybe a customer has, whether it be financing or trade-in value or a new vehicle. And really, they're used to that personal help, but they're just not getting it on the digital retail tool. When they get stuck, they just give up. They're just like, okay, this is too
Yeah, to
difficult.
Martha's point, there's no connection on it. So unless you create that connection on it, like, hey, we can walk you through this, it'll save you a lot of time and make that connection where it solves the hurt of the value of their time, then they're not going to adapt to it.
Part of that is not listening to the dealerships who have experience, good and bad, with customers. The OEMs, rightly or wrongly, they may have experience marketing to customers and a little bit from the OEM point of view on retail, but they don't have that same touch point with the customer all the time. So in a lot of cases, they're just too removed from the game. They're just too removed.
Yeah.
So trying to dictate, not understanding it, is a little bit of a problem. But more importantly, I think if they sat more with the dealers and said, listen, like, what do you think? Versus, this is the perfect, new shiny object for you to do this. And I think will eventually get resolved, because the dealers will eventually, and with customers, fix it, but it's going to take time, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think there are that have some that have done that. I know I worked with Ford for almost 7 years, and we were rolling out the e-com solution for Ford and Lincoln, and we sat with the dealers. And a lot of this comes down to a perception and mindset issue as well. And if I'm a dealer, I'm probably, if I'm being honest, I'm pushing back initially, because I had the CEO of AutoNation, 15 years ago, stand up and say that brick and mortar dealerships are going to go away. It's going to be all digital retailing. Then you got Vroom and Carvana coming onto the scene and really saying consumers want to buy cars virtually, and it's just not true. It's actually categorically false. And I even try to get away from the term digital retailing. I just say it's a digital experience, and ultimately, you have some customers that do. It's a very small percentage, like 2 to 3%, that really want a fully virtual experience where they don't actually come in contact with the dealership. The other 97% do want some level of interaction with the dealership. And it's how you make that transition from digital to dealer and from the virtual to physical. And that's where these digital tools come in, is they allow the consumer to be able to either start in dealership and go home and work on something, or start at home and come into the dealership, or some sort of hybrid back and forth, that ultimately where a consumer goes through their decisioning process of doing their research and landing on the trade-in value and their financing and their F&I products and the vehicle and package they want to be in. And it's a tool that ultimately supports that, and is also, and where a lot of dealers went wrong, or OEMs went wrong in the very beginning in some of the digital retailing tools, where they thought it was a separate channel that was out here, its own, channel that did its own thing. And no, it's not. This needs to be a tool that your sales associates use, and it needs to be a consistent experience regardless of where the customer's at. Are they at home? Are they in the showroom? Or are you working with them back and forth? And that's the tools that are doing that, are the tools that are creating the experience and making work. And one of those is A to Z Sync with Doug Reed.
Right.
It's been their focus of their tool. I know, Roadster does a little bit of that. Autofi does some of that, where they understand that it's an omni-channel experience, and the consumer wants trust and transparency and respect for their time. And that's what you have to focus on, is that, not saying, hey, consumers, Mr. Salesperson, consumers don't like you anymore. They want to buy the car fully online, because that's what they've been told for 15 years up until recently, where it's not that. And so, I don't blame them for digging in their heels and pushing back and saying, I don't want this, because, consumers still, you're not listening. Consumers do want a physical experience. We know they do. Unfortunately, we're suffering from some of the sins of the past, of how these tools were, and these experiences and these perceptions were ultimately rolled out.
Yeah,
I think that's based on OEM too, because the expectation is different at BMW and Porsche than it is at Ford or Nissan. I think it's a very different expectation of the experience and how it starts too.
Yeah,
I think
a lot of it's
also
kind of
you
like
can
a
take it one
word.
step further, the OEMs are also mandating what tool you can use.
100%.
We look with multiple franchises. I get frustrated because I can't have a consistent platform across all of my rooftops, and I think that's hindering the overall experience as well.
Yeah, I kind of look at it like a Word document. You're working on the Word document, whether it be this process or that process. that customer should be able to save that document and then go into a store if that's what they so choose and move forward, versus give up and then start again. I mean, I think that's where kind of the frustration from a customer point of view comes in. But more importantly, if there's a disconnect between that OEM website, the dealership website, and the customer experience, whether it be right or wrong, right?
On top of that, Ian, it's the capture. It's the data capture that everyone is asking for that has an 81% drop off, because they won't give you any information unless you give them your name, date of birth, what you had for dinner, and everything else. If we look at just as simple as an airline, you would never ever fly again if the airline asked you for all the information we asked for and then didn't tell you the price or if there was a ticket available until you showed up at the airport.
Well, I agree. I agree. Lead forms in general, whether it be OEM mandated or not, the one-to-one philosophy, are wrought with peril. But at the same time, I think a lot of it, and I'm sure Martha can speak to this, is about, someone came up with this idea at the OEM level or even the dealership level and said, okay, we need this to move forward. But really, from a customer point of view, what's the best service level for the customer? But more importantly, how are we helping more customers? When I look at that conversion metric with websites in general in automotive, it's very low for that reason. If you actually were there to help the customer in real time, and more importantly, maybe didn't ask for as much information or any information, you'd probably get more engagement. But more importantly, when you make it easy for that customer to continue on their shopping journey. I mean, if Amazon asked you just to look at a purse, for example, to pick a random item, what your name was, I mean, maybe they wouldn't have people looking at that. I don't know. But, maybe let's go to Candace on this. I think, Jeff, you have another question, but go ahead, Candace. What do you think?
I think that level of expectation on how the digital retailing tools or digital retailing experience goes varies with OEM. Because I did a lot, the last place I worked at in a dealership was a BMW store, and I sold internet and I did leases and lease end and all that kind of stuff. The expectation for a BMW is that you're in contact with 97% of the people who lease a car from you. So you are literally selling the car, ordering it, waiting the 8 weeks for the car to get there before the person sees the car, and before they even show up in the dealership, you have to create some kind of rapport with them. We didn't have digital retailing tools back then. That's how old I am. We probably had a website, but they would still pick the car. Well, I'm just going to get another, $335, and I order it, and they paid for it by the time it comes in. So to Marcus' point, it was all about the connection and the rapport and the relationship you built with that person, and that's how you got your loyalty. Now, it didn't hurt that BMW literally waived everything problem with your car, dents and cracks in the windshield. That helped too, but that all adds to that customer experience, right? So, to walk away from BMW lease, be prepared to write a check for $7,000 or whatever. But if you're staying in, they're going to waive all that and just give you another one. Same thing with Mercedes, same thing with Audi, all those big lines. They've created that. They've really mastered that relationship and that long-term customer relationship experience. That's why they have the loyalty they do, is because they've really made it so it's really your best and really only option is to stay with them. So I really got a lot of the things I learned about providing the exceptional customer experience from my time at BMW and Mercedes, Porsche, Audi, because that was a whole nother level that the expectation is, because you have to have that retention. 97% was the expected retention rate by the OEM at any given time. Think about that, 97%. That's high. And if I got to 96%, the BMW FS rep was in my store asking me why within 24 hours. So there was a really high expectation on level customer service. So I brought that back when I was selling with Nissan and when I was selling with Ford, and it created a whole nother level of loyalty to me from those customers. So I think taking those lessons, a lot of the other OEMs are finally learning that it's about a good lease program. It's about a good loyalty program. It's about servicing the customers who've been loyal to Dodge for 10 years or whatever. It's about giving them that white glove treatment or whatever you want to talk about. I think they're catching up, but yeah. And the training is stepping up too. when I sold Nissans initially, there was literally 3 courses you took and you were Nissan certified. Now it's better part of 150 courses in order to be whatever you want to be certified in Nissan. But that's the way it was in the Highline 15 years ago. So that experience, knowledge, training, skill set, and investing in the employees is really paying off a lot better for the OEMs and the dealerships that wrap their arms around it, in my opinion.
I agree 100% there. Invest in the employees, and they'll invest in your customers.
So
Well, we've certainly seen it on the flip side. A better customer experience, a better dealership experience does equate with higher grosses. All else being equal, customers will pay more to be treated in the way they want to be treated. But dealers haven't been able to connect the dots there, I don't think, in most cases. They kind of feel like I have to give up one for the other, and you do not.
It's going back to what I was mentioning before, if you're able to resolve their problems and you show them, possibilities, then the value goes up, because now this product that you're presenting to them has an actual value in it. It's resolving the issue, the problem that they're trying to, get out of it, and listening to them. And like Candace was saying, like I have worked with high brands too, luxury brands, and it's very different than working with Toyota. But a lot also has to do with the support that you have from the OEM. Okay, when the OEM really understand that they need to take care of their customers and hold their dealerships liable for it, then the service that you provide is different, because we are like that. Toyota is very adamant about how we're going to treat their customers. They have a reputation to protect, and we represent. But when you feel pride for what you do, for what you sell, and you know that I'm selling something that, yes, is going to resolve your problem. This is the value. This is how much it's going to cost you. But you know what? I know that this product is not going to leave you in the middle of the road. And if there is anything that happens, the manufacturer will have my back to help you out. Because sometimes you don't have that. You don't have that from the OEM. Because I have worked with some brands as a customer relationship where you're like, oh my God, what do I do now? Right? And there is nothing that you can do from your for your customer. So where the relationship goes and where the loyalty goes, as much as you're trying to do at the dealership level, there is just so far that you can get. But when you have that from the OEM, yes, the loyalty is going to be very different.
Let me ask you guys a question. All else being equal, which brand is stronger, the OEM brand or a well-developed dealership brand? In a customer's mind, which one will carry more weight, do you think?
Well, a lot of customers think the OEM brand is the dealership brand. They don't see the difference.
Yeah. You guys at XYZ Toyota pissed me off, so I'm never buying a Toyota again.
Yeah,
that's
the challenge.
I've heard that many, many times. Yep.
I mean, AutoNation, I guess, changed that a little bit by putting their name first, but I think the perception of a customer is this is just my local Toyota representative. I'm actually dealing with Toyota. I remember that as a lease manager, where basically we'd be asking the customer to, remit payment to Honda, for example. They thought you were a representative. You could just drop off the check. They don't really see that, AutoNation as being, even though they might know the name, they don't see that as being anything different. So I think part of the challenge there is the confusion, right?
Well,
I think that also
if that's
is
the
different in
case,
group. It's AutoNation's a big brand, but name me a Lithia store, name me an Asbury store, because they don't call them Lithia and Asbury, so they don't associate it with that auto group. AutoNation's unique. But same thing with, Carvana and Vroom, it's a brand in and of itself that people won't blame Toyota because their Toyota Corolla went bad that they bought at Carvana. They're going to blame Carvana. But I, to your point, I've seen that happen. Oh, I'm never buying a Nissan again because this one Nissan I bought 12 years ago was a piece of crap. It's like, well, maybe it was that one store you bought it from.
Well, so that's interesting, because if that's the case, if what you guys are saying is the case, then if I'm a dealer and I represent a brand, an OEM that, let's just say, is a crappy OEM brand, whatever it be, brand X. No matter what I do, it doesn't matter, because they're still going to equate me with that brand. So why would I even focus on the dealership experience? Because I can do everything I can, but it doesn't matter because they're still gonna say, yeah, but you're still an X brand dealer, so I don't care. I tend to think that it's not that a dealership has the ability and frankly, the mandate to overcome and to surpass the OEM's brand in developing their own brand. That you gotta be above and beyond, even if I'm a BMW dealership and everybody loves BMW or what have you, I need to be above that. My bar has to be higher than simply what BMW's brand is equating in customers' mind. I have to develop my brand that's above and beyond that. And that's the challenge in my mind.
Would you
Well,
guys
you
agree
know-
that's more rural to an urban store? Because like in Los Angeles, I think the brand of the dealership gets diluted. Because there's, 60 Nissan dealerships within the Los Angeles County. But in Nevada, in Las Vegas, in Clark County, there's 4 Nissan dealerships. So you can identify the brand of each dealership and each owner. So I think that varies based on the geography too, and how many other stores around there, how it gets diluted.
I think we have to take a look at something though, it's a very case by case situation. There used to be, there's still a sales saying that a person decides what kind of treatment they're going to get from a dealership within 1 minute of talking to a salesperson from the dealership service department. They form an opinion based on that. I know of very few instances where the dealer is more important than the brand. We have a BMW dealer here in Vancouver that literally has a greater brand than BMW because of that name, and they are the largest in the country. GM years ago, probably starting in the 40s and 50s, required their dealer principal's name, the owner, not the print. There was no such thing as a dealer principal. You owned a dealership until they started making mega ones, and the dealer's name had to be on there before the brand. And well, you don't see that now, and it's very true. And it's the problem is, who was it, Doug or Peter, that says right now that it's almost single-digit percentages of people will return to the same dealer they bought the car from before.
70%.
Yeah. So the fact is this. I think we're missing one thing. We've touched on it. The OEM comes up with a policy. Now the OEM intends to make a customer happy only because they want more business from them. Let's not kid each other. They don't care. Nobody cares. The dealer wants more business because they want more money. So they buy digital solutions. Candace goes in there. All these companies go in there, great digital solutions. And you've heard me many a time say, there's a virtual closet full of digital solutions. And it doesn't go over groups. Somebody will have 10 stores and there'll be 20 different processes for the same thing. Right. Where it falls apart is, and I wish Larry was on the show because he would talk about this. You come in there and you do your thing and you tell them stuff. I remember getting my dealer socket installed in my group, and in came these kids with these button-down shirts and these chinos, and these guys look great. They're right out of Brigham Young University, and they use words like algorithms. Every single salesperson, I've said it 1,000 times, goes when they hear algorithms, and it gets lost because the manager goes into this thing. And again, I remember sitting in one of Larry's seminars, and a Larry seminar, if you've never seen it, is a thing to behold. You cannot not watch Larry. You cannot avoid being engaged. In the back of the room was a manager ordering his cars. And he went there because the dealer said or the GM or GSM said you had to be there. So he's on his laptop, and if you could have asked him, did Larry stand on a chair? He would have gone, what? Sorry? So he didn't care. So his people went back to the dealership, and all the great stuff Larry talked about, and Larry doesn't use, and I'm not here to promote him, well, even though he's a sponsor, all the things that he does is all about the experience. It's not about acronyms. It's not always see your customer as your paycheck or any of that crap. So it crosses generations, everything. But the manager was disconnected. So they went back, he said, okay, now you're doing it my way. And so you get a digital solution. What is the average, Doug? Because you actually see it day to day, Peter. I'm not putting you down, or Brian. What's the average email response time? to a lead.
It used to be 2 days, but I think it's an hour now, right?
Horrible. It's
5
horrible.
minutes? My store, 5 minutes.
5
Your
minutes.
store 5 minutes, Martha, because you're a rock star, honestly. The average out there is probably over 60 minutes
At least.
because,
I can speak to one brand, OEM brand, one Asian OEM brand specifically, and I saw the nationwide response rate. It was actually 63 minutes. So
yeah. In 2008, I had a salesman. He literally at 11 o'clock at night would respond to email leads, and he got back 3 letters from everybody. WTF, I'm so impressed. And now the fact is it falls apart at the face-to-face level, be it the manager, be it the salesperson, be it the BDC rep, please forgive me. If they don't understand or feel it, it doesn't happen. And I don't care who you are. I mean, everybody talks about Brian Benstock. I'm sure their response rates are very, very good. However, after about 4 months, somebody discovers somewhere that somebody's not doing their job right and they take corrective action, be that whatever it is. So,
Jeff, just let me respond to that for 1 second.
If you disagree with me, I'm muting you. No.
When I was with Volvo as an OEM in Canada and running a couple of Volvo stores, our response time was mandated to be under 10 minutes. And that was approximately 5 years ago. That was our mandate. Nationwide, we had to be under 10 minutes. If we weren't, we were chastised and we actually lost income from the manufacturer. In the last year, I did a mystery shop on a Japanese brand. In doing so, I started off at the digital platform and worked through to the in-store platform. 6 days later, I received the email back from my initial digital retailing request. 6 days. Now, the funny part about that was at the 3-day mark, I received an email from the dealer principal asking me how I was looked after. So
I'll tell you what happens.
It happens all.
I'm sure that email went well every single time.
And let me add something to the response time. You know what? It doesn't matter how quick or how long it takes you to respond.
Quality.
But if you ignore the customer's questions, if you ignore the customer's concern, it doesn't really matter.
Read the
Yep.
lead.
Exactly.
Amen. My number one, when I had the 63 stores that I actually managed, the number one store, the number one close rate store, his response time was 13 minutes. And I had another store that their response time was 3 minutes. They were never number one. In fact, they were at the bottom half of performing as far as close rate. So absolutely good point. That fastest response time doesn't necessarily equate to highest sales. Doesn't necessarily equate. You have nothing to say, but you're answering in 2 minutes. Like
that's quality of response, exactly.
Quality of response.
You mean thanks for the inquiry? Someone will get back to you. Is not good.
I have a hybrid sales department, but when I had managed all of the internet leads through the BDC department, I like a personal email when the first response goes out. Take your time and reply to the customer. Don't send one of the templates. And even on our sales teams, I've trained them to make sure that, use the template because I know some of them, they need the extra help, they're not creative, right? But it's like tweak it a little bit and make it more personal because that's what the customer need. And down to what you were asking about the OEMs and the dealerships, I think, yes, definitely. I think right now after the pandemic, there is not much loyalty from our customers to any brand because there's so much things on social media, right? I think now the new generations, they go where the trend goes, right? So because of that, yes, the support from the OEM is very important and the reputation of the OEM is very important, but you have to make sure that you're relevant, that you're different. And in LA, like Candace says, I have a Toyota dealership probably every 10 minutes, in each direction. I work for myself, so we need to stay present, we need to stay relevant. And you can only go ahead and think and do that, not by the prices, not by what you advertise, but it's by the experience that you provide.
Yep.
Nobody remembers what they paid for the car 3 months after they
They
bought the
remember
car.
how you treat them. You
Absolutely.
treat
And
them.
they don't remember what pissed them off. They just remember that they were pissed off. I do have, Brian made a suggestion here, don't mean to cut anybody off, of something. He said something about and last minute items. I don't know what that is there, Brian.
It's autopilot. It's the
Autopilot.
don't.
So one quick thing, Martha, I couldn't agree with you more. When you're representing a brand like Toyota, we're in a metropolitan area.
That was easy for you to say.
Yeah. In Toronto, where I live, it's third largest city, North America. There's 23 Toyota dealerships within a 30-minute drive of each other. 23 different Toyota dealerships. You have to do things that much better and that much more integrous to gain that customer body and retain them.
I'm sorry, Peter, you are 150% wrong. In Toronto, there might be 23 dealerships within 30 miles of each other, but Toronto's transportation system, they don't use highways, they don't use freeways, they call parking lots. So it's 35 hours.
Oh, my brother's in Los Angeles. It's not about distance, it's about time.
Just like LA.
Yeah, it does.
I think that the summation of all this is dealers should aspire to do more. And they've got to just take the first step. Most dealers won't even take the first step and even engage their employees and say, what are we doing wrong or what could we do better? But they've got to do it. They've got to aspire. They've got to be able to say, every other industry has done it better. We need to do it better too. And they've got to just take the first step.
Having
Just
said
like
that,
the branding thing, I don't remember who was talking about the branding thing. There's a Ford dealership in North County that actually used to deliver every single car with a pair of white gloves. So when you went out and got your car, so they're known as the White Glove Ford dealership. So they branded themselves just because of that extra special customer experience. So taking that big step and providing that next level, that actually what made their brand stand out from all the other the 25 other Ford dealerships in San Diego County. So it's a great point.
Well,
Question, how are they doing?
Colorado shop is trademarked one price, one person, 1 hour. That's all they're known for. And everybody knows it. And they make money than anybody and they can sell it for more and everybody knows it. And their brand supplants everything else.
Yeah. I'm very curious, you brought up Ford, Candace. I'm very curious how many of these dealers that pushed a good experience are dealing, Ford dealers we'll call it, that got $25,000 over MSRP for a Lightning 8 months ago, are now dealing with people coming in saying their sale prices on Lightnings.
Man, I was selling diesels when there were diesels coming in with the engine on fire on tow trucks, and I was trying to sell a car to a guy sitting on the lot watching a smoking car coming in. Yeah, it was all about the Kansas City Shuffle. Yeah, don't look over here, look over here, don't look over there. So, and I remember that. I remember them taking orders for that G500 or whatever it was, GT500. I remember taking orders for the Mach 1s. I remember taking orders for the Roush Stage 6, all that stuff. And it was all way over MSRP. That the salespeople got nothing up. It was all pure, unadulterated profit for the dealership. So when you have a pissed off salesperson knowing they have to charge you 10 grand over sticker for a Shelby Cobra, because that's going to go in the dealer's pocket, do you really honestly think that the salesman's going to be happy about it either? Because they don't get any of that. They're selling it for profit for the dealership. So you're going to have a pissed off salesperson selling to someone who absolutely is in love and has to have that Shelby Cobra. But to your point, they're going to come back. I mean, what about, anybody here old enough to remember the PT Cruiser and all that whole nightmare? And how they were selling that for 15 grand over sticker, and you didn't even get to pick the color, you got whatever came in, and then everybody who bought a PT Cruiser was buried in it for the next 12 years.
Well, here's an interesting story about that up here.
PT Cruiser now, you know what I mean? They're just saying.
We had dealers, and I was a Chrysler guy. We had dealers that leased out a PT Cruiser when they first came out. So MSRP up here for a full load limit was 31,000 Canadian. They did they leased it out at $37,000. 6 months later, they pulled them out of the car, put them into a new PT Cruiser, and shipped the car to the States for $37,000. So, up here, we got that old Canadian American dollar thing, and the exporting is quite a big deal. But yeah, it's, we gotta learn to protect ourselves.
That doesn't, longevity, that doesn't equate to longevity. Like just gouging people on a price doesn't equate to customer, loyalty or longevity. So enough people got screwed over for a PT Cruiser. A lot of people stepped back from Chrysler. Same thing with, the BMW with the M-Class vehicles. Like I was in a BMW store in 2007 when we had a brand new M3 that was coming out and everyone lost their minds. We were getting allocated 7 for the entire next year that it was coming out. Our waiting list, which you paid $5,000 to be on, was 153 deep. They didn't get that money back. That was non-refundable. You just paid 5 G's to sit on the waiting list. I thought that was the most ridiculous thing in the world. And that dealer's reputation went toilet-wise after that. Because you just basically kept people's money for it was ridiculous.
Yeah, but you're never going to see the car. Like, why even bother? Why even bother to collect the money if you can't ever see the car? I mean, to me, that seems silly.
Thank you.
Like, why even waste the time? Yeah. Anyway, we're out of time. Unfortunately.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We greatly appreciate it. Hopefully you had a great experience, Candace, for being the newbie. And Martha, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And have a great week.
As always.
Always fun.
All right.
And we're going to be out once we figure out how to run our closing audios clip there.
Here we go.
Oh la. What?
Thanks for joining us. It was a great show, and follow us anywhere you would like on your favorite podcast, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and of course on our YouTube, or subscribe to our own channel.